Okay, so once upon a time, I was a brand new attorney, just got out of law school. And my first client was a guy who owned a seawall building company. Just him. It was a sole proprietorship. And he had owned, well, he had for many, many years just been a landscaper, and he would build rockeries for people in their yards. Nice rockeries. He was good at it. And one day he just figured he'd take it to the next level, and he figured he could take his skill building rockeries and build seawalls out on Puget Sound. So he had a house on Lake Tapps, and he leveraged everything he owned, and he bought the Wilkeson Quarry, which I think was bought out of a bankruptcy from a railroad at the time. It was just an old rundown quarry. Now, this quarry had been famous back in the day. I mean, the sandstone at the Wilkeson Quarry was used to build, at least in part, many, many buildings all around Seattle and Tacoma, including the Washington State Capitol building, which is constructed out of sandstone. It was beautiful sandstone, and this quarry was like a ghost town. I mean, all kinds of buildings, run down, grass, blackberry bushes. I mean, people come up there and walk around just to see it. It was it was part of I think it was on the list of historical sites in Washington, and it was just a spectacular place, but it was very mysterious. And he bought this quarry, and he'd go up there, and with dynamite, he'd blow up the mountain and get big old huge blocks of sandstone. And he had bought a barge and a dump truck, and hired a guy with a tugboat. And back in the day, you'd see a big barge, going all over Puget Sound with a big mountain of sandstone on it, big huge blocks of sandstone. And he'd take that sandstone to the waterfront property of beautiful homes and build them these seawalls to protect their house from erosion, their property from erosion. And he'd get 50 to 100 grand a pop for these seawalls that would take 3-4 days to build. And he'd stay on site, sleep on the tugboat with his tugboat pilot, and he hired me to help get his permits. And I was just brand new right out of law school, and I thought it was a pretty interesting thing. And I'd go up to the Wilkeson Quarry and just poke around because it was just such an interesting place. And I'd also go on his tugboat and go up to different sites where he'd be building, and we'd drink beer on the tugboat, and just it was just a really interesting first thing to experience as an attorney. Well, I also rented an office from him in Algona, right off 167. And one day I'm sitting in there, and I'm not doing real well financially. Just got out of law school. I'm not making a ton of money. And I get this call from a gal who had a trailer at a park in Auburn. And anyway, she found my ad on a register tape at the Safeway store or something, and called me up, and she starts to tell me this long story about how she didn't have any money, but her father had just been found dead, possibly murdered, at the bottom of a ravine in Mississippi or something. And she knew he had money, and she wanted someone to go to Mississippi and investigate the mysterious death of her father. And she couldn't pay the person, but she figured that if she could find out what happened and find out what he owned and find his will and stuff, that there would be money in it. And of course, I wasn't in a position to take this case at the time, but as she talked to me, and it was like an hour conversation, as she talked to me, I just saw this in my mind's eye. I saw, well, yeah, I can't take your case, but it would make a great story. The guy in a book, the young attorney who's at the end of his wits, he takes the case, and he goes there, and he sells his car, and he goes to Mississippi, and all of a sudden he finds himself embroiled in a very mysterious scenario, and it changes his life, right? I mean, he goes from being the struggling nothing in Algona to somebody who actually finds a very, very interesting and life-changing experience investigating this lady's, the death of this lady's father. Of course, he meets a girl, and at a cafe or something, and all that kind of thing. But I just thought it would be a great story, Well, one day I'm down here at Alki, and I used to come down here all the time in the summer, and there was a smell here, and I couldn't figure out what it was, and I walked down to the beach, and there was a dead deer just right on the beach. And I'd been here hundreds and hundreds of times, never saw a dead deer wash up on Alki Beach. And then all of a sudden it hit me, what if that was a dead body that washed up on Alki Beach? And then I knew that I was going to write the book, right? And in my book, the lawyer was in St. Paul, and he gets a call from somebody who wants him to go to Seattle to investigate the mysterious death of her father, who just washed up on Alki Beach. Well, I got the quarry, I got the sandstone operation, and the barge and the tugboat. Now I got a dead body washing up on Alki Beach, and a young lawyer, risking his future to go, tackle an adventure. And that was basically how Luna Park, got its start as an idea, actual things. And so I bring in the quarry and the sandstone and the barge and the tug and the lawyer and everything, and it ended up being a novel, actually a novel series. And so that's basically how it all started, right here on Alki Beach, and in Algona, and in quarry near Mount Rainier. Fun stuff.